So last week at Google I/O, Alberto and Thierry gave a fantastic, very wide-ranging talk covering WordPress and AMP. They had 40 minutes to do that, and today I'm going to attempt to cover a lot of the same things, but I only have 10 minutes to do so. So this will be fun. In doing so, what I'm going to be doing with you guys is sharing some context about why the AMP project matters and talk to you a little bit about what's coming in AMP and WordPress and look at some examples of that. So let's get started. So user experience refers to the emotions and attitudes a person experiences when using a product, system, or service. Does any of this sound familiar to you, Alberto? It's about how our users feel when engaging with the content applications we create. And for many of us, and hopefully most of us, or if not all of us, we want to actually create delightful user experiences. So what's involved in that? There are four primary factors in creating the delightful user experience. First, users love applications that are fast and reliable. That means they load quickly and consistently and offer solid runtime performance. Second, it means that users want applications, another factor rather, is that users want applications that are secure. That means that they can trust them to do what they say they're going to do with their data and transactions. Users also love applications that feel integrated into the devices that they're using. That allows them to take full advantage of the capabilities those devices offer. And users want applications and experiences that are engaging with them, that they can come back to. So an important concept to bring into this mix is when you think about the complexity of the web ecosystem and how it's evolved, there's been a lot of considerable expansion of what Alberto coined the capability and usage gap, which is the difference between what can be done on the web and what is actually done on the web. So if you look at, say, 1999, arguably, the gap wasn't that big. You had basic HTML and CSS, and that was it. There wasn't a whole lot more complicated than that. Here we are in 2018, and the web platform has evolved a lot. There are a lot of different tools and frameworks to work with, and we now are in a situation where we're having to develop experiences for a seemingly infinite number of device types and situations. So we have a lot of great tools that are available to us, but they're not very easy to take advantage of, which is what leads us to AMP. What is AMP? So AMP is an open source library that makes it easy to build web pages and full sites that provide experiences that are compelling and, very importantly, load nearly instantly. AMP is made up of 3 parts. The first is AMP HTML, which is both a subset of HTML and a superset of it, in that it has HTML elements that you cannot use, like the image tag, and new AMP-specific elements that it introduces to provide additional functionality. The second part of AMP is the runtime system, which is a piece of JavaScript that runs inside every AMP document and provides logic for AMP custom elements. It manages resource loading and prioritization and provides a wide range of performance optimizations that make AMP pages efficient. And last, we have the AMP cache, which is a kind of CDN for caching valid AMP documents and making them available for anyone to use. So, AMP in WordPress, something that is exciting to me from a lot of different perspectives. It's an opportunity to combine a great open source library with WordPress, which is the world's largest publishing platform, which was built with a focus on user experience. Adoption of AMP and WordPress is really important to us, and we see 3 key challenges to adoption. The first is core compatibility. AMP needs to work well with WordPress out of the box. That just has to happen. You also have the challenge of what I'll describe as like CSS overload. You have huge amounts of CSS that are generated by plugins and themes, and you have the challenge of validation and anticipating all the different ways that WordPress is going to be used, which is a tough problem to solve. So let's look at where we're at today. We have 0.7 of the AMP plugin. Whoop, well, a little ahead of there. Okay, that's fine. I'll leave it there. Which was released a few weeks ago and focuses on solving the first challenge, which is core compatibility. So as of 0.7, all of the things that WordPress kind of does by default the plugin makes them fully AMP compatible. That includes widgets, embeds, comment shortcodes, etc. And now let's take a look at what's being worked on now and what we expect to come in the 1.0 release. So first up, we have a feature called CSS Treeshaking, which is focused on solving the second challenge and dealing with the amount of CSS packaged in with themes and plugins. As you guys may know, AMP only allows 50 kilobytes of CSS, and the reality is that most WordPress themes use a lot more than that. And fixing it can be a really time-consuming process that often requires complete rewrites of your CSS to really kind of achieve that. So the plugin introduces the ability to apply a mechanism called CSS Treeshaking. It scans the HTML document and ensures that only the CSS needed on a given page is loaded. Everything else is automatically removed, which considerably reduces the amount of CSS and makes it easier. So if you're interested in how this works, talk to Thierry or Weston or Alberto afterwards. It's really interesting. And there's some considerable challenges to doing it effectively, but AMP, anyway, that's a very interesting thing. So the last challenge is validation. It's very difficult in the WordPress context to predict how it's going to be used, right? There are thousands of plugins and themes that are available and many different ways that people can use WordPress. To address that, the AMP plugin has a post processor powered by the AMP validator itself. The post processor has the ability to ensure that all the content rendered is valid. Sometimes that will have effects that you wouldn't anticipate, but this is a powerful piece of the equation, and a lot of time and effort's been invested into making this work. And like CSS Treeshaking, if you're curious to know more about how validation works, talk to us afterwards. And here's an example of it in action. Here you have the 2015 theme. It looks just like the one you'd expect, except this is all AMP. And a few minor tweaks were applied to make it work, and it works fantastically. And there's a view of it on mobile. So let's talk about Gutenberg. Talked about it quite a bit today, and it was, as you know, Gutenberg introduces the concept of blocks to pages. It comes with a range of default blocks and a lot of powerful APIs to build custom blocks. You also have AMP, which has all these components, which we think can be leveraged to build some really amazing pages. So the idea at a high level is how about leveraging Gutenberg, the power of Gutenberg, to create these content experiences and combine it with AMP. And that's what we focused on doing. So Gutenberg, the AMP plugin, allows you to use the AMP components within the Gutenberg context. And let's take a look as we wrap up at how that looks. Here we have an AMP theme it's a WordPress theme based on an AMP start template. All of this was created in Gutenberg. And since I only have 1 minute and 30 seconds left, I'm going to jump over to showing you what the flow looks like in the WordPress admin. So here we have Gutenberg. Oh, and it's not playing. That's unfortunate. There we go. Here we have Gutenberg. And you can do the things that you'd expect to do. And the AMP components, the first one we'll look at here is the hero component, which is drawn from the AMP start theme. As you insert that, you can see exactly how it looks. Make the edits in context. If there was a way to scrub this, I would, but we're going to watch this for a moment. You can add a new block. I think Thierry was saying something really smart at this point. And you can see how that looks. These, again, are just pulled. These are components from the theme. Validation is running in the background. If you had tried to do anything like put the wrong elements in line, it would let you know. You can see here you have something that's pulling directly from the WordPress categories. And it's almost done. It's going to click over in just a moment. And you can see, and I think importantly for this, this is kind of users get to see kind of exactly what they're expecting. Then you can create these fantastic looking themes, that look like a normal WordPress theme that's using AMP. All right, and that's it.